I just want to say that we're here to report that this narcotics investigation that began nearly 3 months ago culminated yesterday with the arrest of 2 individuals and the collective seizure, as you see, of approximately 3.5 kilos of cocaine, 5 ounces of fentanyl. That's very important because that fentanyl, the very little amount of fentanyl, the damage it causes throughout the county, the deaths that are related to the fentanyl. So the fentanyl is used as a cutting agent to make this product more profitable for the drug dealers, but at the same time, it tells you and everybody else that the drug dealers don't think about their customers and they're actually poisoning their product. In addition to that, we have more than $212,000 in U.S. currency, as you see, and over $200,000 in property, along with 8 handguns that were recovered, illegally possessed handguns, 2 of them which are stolen, 1 out of Niagara County and 1 out of the state of Mississippi. I just wanted to turn it over to the Undersheriff, Bill Cooley, so he could give you a timeline and some details regarding the events that led up to yesterday.
Thanks, Sheriff. Good afternoon. This was a complex case with a lot of moving parts, so please bear with me as I help you go through the chronology of this case. Search warrants were obtained for 144 Milburn Street, 89 Deschler Street, and 1 Oxford Court, all in the city of Buffalo. The search warrant was also secured to search the target of this investigation, identified as 33-year-old Sidney Mellerson of the town of Tonawanda. Thereafter, Sheriff's narcotics detectives set up a surveillance of Mellerson's residence in Tonawanda. From his residence, Mellerson traveled to 274 Hastings Avenue in the city of Buffalo, which was consistent with anticipatory information that was gleaned during the investigation. When Mellerson left Hastings, Sheriff's detectives followed his car onto the 33 westbound, where they initiated a traffic stop. As detectives approached Mellerson, he attempted to flee and was subsequently boxed in by police vehicles. Mellerson proceeded to struggle with officers when a taser was deployed and he was taken into custody. He really created a very dangerous situation, and we're grateful that no one was hurt and no property was damaged. Mellerson was found to be in possession of 5 ounces of crack cocaine. The search warrant was obtained for 274 Hastings Avenue in the lower. Recovered was 2.5 kilograms of cocaine, about 5 ounces of fentanyl, and 2 loaded handguns, which were both reported stolen. Thereafter, search warrants were simultaneously executed by tactical teams from the FBI, HSI, BPD, and the Erie County Sheriff's Office, and the search warrants were executed at 144 Milburn Street, 89 Deschler Street, and 1 Oxford Court. On Milburn, the house was occupied by about 16 individuals, and recovered was 16 ounces of crack cocaine and 2 loaded handguns. Immediately prior to the execution of Deschler, a 911 call of an overdose emanated from that address, and the execution of the search warrant was suspended until the first aid response concluded. Thereafter, they resumed, and a loaded handgun was ultimately recovered from the Deschler address. This house was also occupied by about 14 individuals, and again, these individuals are all drug users and prostitutes. The houses were boarded up by the Mayor's Impact Team, and all the occupants therein were provided with assistance in the form of educational pamphlets from the Department of Health. At this point, Chief Granville's team secured a search warrant for defendant Sidney Mellerson's home at 113 Grandview Avenue in the town of Tonawanda. Present at this address was Mellerson's significant other, and outside in front of the house was an associate of Mellerson, later identified as 31-year-old Keyshawn Atwood. After detectives entered the home, Atwood left the scene. Recovered from a lockbox and other areas of the residence were thousands of dollars in U.S. currency, a loaded handgun which was recovered from a dresser drawer, and a receipt for a storage facility that Mellerson's significant other described as an old receipt. She continued to dissociate herself and Mellerson from the storage facility, stating that the usage of the facility was historical. With that, Chief Granville directed 2 deputies to the storage facility to investigate the veracity of her claims, and upon their arrival at the storage facility, they encountered Atwood, who was earlier at the address in Tonawanda. He was carrying 2 paper bags containing more than $200,000 in U.S. currency, and he was in possession of a .45 caliber handgun. He is currently in custody. This was really a great job by DJ Granville and his crew and all of our law enforcement partners that are up here today. So with that, I'll turn it over to District Attorney Flynn. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff, and thank you, Under Sheriff. I also want to thank my partners here, Homeland Security, FBI, City of Buffalo. Again, as we say so many times, we all work together. We're all part of the same team. We don't have the problems that other jurisdictions have where the states don't talk to the locals don't talk to the feds, et cetera, et cetera. We all talk to one another. We all work with one another, and the reason for working with one another is that we get these off the streets. The sheriff said that, he alluded to the fact that these drug dealers don't care about anyone because they're poisoning their customers and other individuals. I'll take it a step further. They're killing them, quite frankly. That the fentanyl mixed with the cocaine is killing people of our community. Simple as that. Yes, we're saving a lot of them with Narcan, but just think about the number and the increase in overdose deaths that we've had in the past 3 years since COVID. Those increases in overdose deaths are a result of more and more of these drugs on our streets, and they are still rising even though people are getting saved with Narcan. Imagine how many people will be dead without Narcan and without the help of first responders saving these people's lives. So as far as I'm concerned, even though I can't charge them with a murder charge, these people who are dealing drugs out there are killing people. And so the Under Sheriff alluded to a couple of individuals here. Just to let you know that Sidney Mellerson was previously arraigned and has some pending charges as well. He was arraigned on August 27th, 2022, last summer, in front of Buffalo City Court Judge Shannon Hennigan on one count of a controlled substance in the fifth degree, which is a D felony, one count of a criminal possession of controlled substance in the 7th degree, and a misdemeanor, and 2 counts of drug paraphernalia. That arrest was in response to some shots being fired on Shootram Street here in the city of Buffalo. When the police responded to the scene, they saw a number, approximately 16, I believe, users and prostitutes fleeing that house, and they found Mr. Mellerson upstairs, and he had the controlled substances on him. I'm not going to specify what those controlled substances are at this time, but he is still facing those charges, and those charges were all non-qualifying offenses, and he was released, and he was out. In this case, it's actually a good thing he was released, because if he was sitting in jail the whole time, none of this would have happened. So, in this case, bail reform worked. He got out, and then we eventually, he obviously remained on our radar, as the Under Sheriff stated. He remained on our radar, and now we are here today. He was arraigned this morning, again in Buffalo City Court, in front of Judge Hennigan, on criminal possession of controlled substance of 1st degree for the drugs that were found in the Hastings house. He was arraigned on criminal possession of controlled substance of 2nd degree for the drugs found on his person when they pulled him over on the 33. On the 33, right? And then he was charged with criminal possession of controlled substance of 3rd degree, which is the intent to sell, the overall intent to sell of the stuff on his person, allegedly, and the stuff in the Hastings house. In addition to that, in the house on Hastings, 2 handguns were found. Those handguns were allegedly stolen as well. So he faces 2 counts of criminal possession of 2nd degree, which are C felonies, and 2 counts of criminal possession of a stolen property, which are E felonies. He is remanded this time. He's not getting out now, fortunately. He's remanded this time, and he returns on February 15th for a felony hearing. Mr. Atwood he will be arraigned. He was arraigned, Mr. Atwood, also by Judge Hennigan for an E-felony, which is tampering with physical evidence. And the legal theory is that this is evidence used in drug dealing, and he is allegedly tampering with that evidence. So he's facing an E-felony, which he was arraigned on this morning, along with allegedly there was an unloaded handgun that was found in that bag with the cash. That's an E-felony. He also was charged with obstructing of justice, government administration, and resisting arrest. He gave the officers allegedly a hard time. Those are both A misdemeanors, and he was released, obviously, because none of those charges are qualifying offenses. You can walk around now with 200 grand in cash from drug dealers and walk out of court today in New York State. Mr. Mellerson will be arraigned this afternoon. One charge is still pending. He will be arraigned on a criminal possession of a weapon in the second degree. One of the handguns was found in the property in Tonawanda. He will be arraigned in Tonawanda court, I am told, this afternoon on that charge, which again is a C felony. So those are the players here. This is obviously a good day for this community, not only to get the cash off the street, which can go buy more drugs, but to get the drugs and the guns off our street as well. And hopefully, this table right here will save some lives. And at the end of the day, that's all we're trying to do, is save lives. Sir?
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. I just wanted to add that, with the 8 handguns here, the investigation's not over, so the 8 handguns will be analyzed, and we're going to see if any of them have a body on them, any shooting or homicides. So we're going to continue with the investigation. And also, I wanted to make a point regarding the 2 encounters that our deputies had with the 2 individuals that were arrested. The first individual that pulled over on the 33 when he made the surveillance, that could have really gone sideways, and I just got to credit the deputies for de-escalating that incident quickly, safely, and with no one getting injured. A taser was deployed. It worked. And then with the second individual, when he was coming out of the storage area with the money in a loaded .44 handgun, I mean, that could have also turned deadly. And I credit my deputies for doing an outstanding job de-escalating the issue, taking the suspect into custody without any incident. If anyone has any questions for anyone up here, Mr. McKinley.
Yes, sir. Where was the storage facility?
The storage facility.
400 Kenmore Avenue.
What's with the bling? I mean, you took money out because I obviously know the source of that, what it was being used for, but I'm taking that in trade now for drugs?
So, as part of a seizure, we seized over $212,000 in cash, 8 handguns, 1 vehicle, and also property, to wit, the jewelry. They have to show how they came up with the money to purchase almost $175,000 in gold jewelry, not having allegedly any employment. So we will hold that. It will go to the courts, and we'll see where it goes from there.
Is that money bundled when you guys got your hands on it? Because you got loose in a bag and some is bundled?
This U.S. currency here was located in 2 individual bags. The money you see over here was located at the residence in Tonawanda.
So they bundled it?
That's correct. It wasn't specifically bundled like this. It was in this manner, but we counted it and rebundled it together. But it was bundled just the same.
So they were, there's 212,000 you said there?
Roughly.
Roughly. at two different locations, right? 212, and he had a bag at one place, right, where he had.
There was 2 bags located at the storage facility, and then this other money you see here was located at a residence in the town of Tonawanda.
These people that you find in the houses, that are, I guess, users and prostitutes, and,
Yeah. We don't want to charge them.
so, well, no, so you give them pamphlets and off they go?
Yeah, I guess, yeah. I mean, you try to help them, you know, you try to.
How's that helping?
Well, I mean, again, you could, first of all, you can't really make the legal argument that they're in possession of any of this stuff right here, all right? You know, it's tenuous. And, you know, you can't, there's no reason to hold them. I mean, you could, again, if you found crack on them or drugs on them, you could theoretically hold them, but that wasn't the case, okay? You know, so.
I mean, did they do, John, and
they-
hold them so that they could get into some drug treatment? or
If they
something?
had drugs on them, if they had drugs on them, and they had, you know, a crack pipe on them or something, but in this case right here,
Is that a downside of bail reform, that you can't hold
it's,
them? and
it's
they just
a,
kill themselves?
it's a huge downside of bail reform, okay? Yeah, I mean, you're going in the right direction here. Yeah, it's a huge downside of bail reform because now let's say that one of them had a rock on him, all right? You can't even hold them now, all right? You have to give them an appearance ticket, okay? So you got to give them an appearance ticket, and then you're scheduled to come back to court 2 weeks later. They're not coming back to court, all right? So you can't hold them. You can't put them really in a drug court or any kind of court because you got no hammer hanging over their head, all right? You can't. The hammer was bail. The hammer was holding them, and without that hammer hanging over their head, yeah, you can try to put them, through opioid court. You can try to put them through mental health court. You can try to put them through a diversion program, but they're just not showing up now, okay? Because there's no hammer hanging over their head, and so yeah, I know it sounds facetious, but yeah, you give them a pamphlet. You say, hey, here you go, but at the end of the day, are you really helping them? Probably not. I'm just as cynical as you are, okay? I mean, probably not. I mean,
Would somebody be able to make bail, though?
What's that?
Would somebody with this much money on them be able to make bail?
Well, it's again, they're never going to admit that they have this money, okay? Let's be caught up with them, all right? So they're going to say they're poor, all right? So now, yeah, if it's in there. I mean, if their sister or brother shows up with cash for bail, then yeah, I mean, then they will. But again, it all depends on whether or not they're willing to sit in jail for a little while, so their sister and brother doesn't find out about their money. It's up to the individual.
Can I just add something?
Yeah, go ahead, John. Yeah.
I just wanted to add something to Dave's question. That's a really good point. So we have about 825 incarcerated individuals in our 2 facilities. Half of those are receiving medication for mental illness and or counseling for mental illness. 100 are in our MAT program, the Medicine Assisted Treatment Program, where they receive or Suboxone or methadone. Some people don't get any services whatsoever in the community until they are arrested and end up at the holding center. There's people that have never been to a dental clinic, have never been diagnosed, and somebody telling them, you're a diabetic, you have hypertension, medication. So those services that they receive when they come through the doors, Dave, they're not receiving right now because of bail reform, and they're not going through the process. So I think the issue is what's going on out in the community. We have a lack of mental health facilities, and we also have a lack of detoxing facilities. So I just wanted to make that point. We have a very sick group of people that come through the doors of the holding center. And as you can imagine, the people that are using and injecting fentanyl and heroin and cocaine, and sometimes cocaine and heroin, the hepatitis, abscess, blood disorders, and everything else. And people are not getting any kind of treatment out there, Dave.
The individuals who created the bail reform made a conscious decision when they were advocating to Albany that this is what we want passed. They made a conscious decision that on the scales to weigh here, that it is better for an individual not to be arrested, not to get into the criminal justice system, than it is for them to get help.
You mentioned that arrests like this help you save lives.
Yeah.
Does bail reform prevent you from saving lives?
In some cases. I mean, it's again, not all of bail reform is evil and bad. Okay, there are. Listen here. Put aside this right here. You got the kid who steals a candy bar at Walmart. All right, so that kid, again, assuming the kid just did it for non drug reasons, not I mean, he just stole a candy bar at Walmart. That kid, all right, he's not in on bail. That's a good thing, all right. But the fact that our treatment courts, the number of people in our treatment courts statewide has gone down dramatically since bail reform, dramatically. And those people potentially are going to die, and those people need help. Not potentially need help, they need help, all right? And bail reform, to some degree, is a cause of those individuals not going into treatment court and not getting the help. And the answer to your question, yes, dying.
I think you mentioned in the past that judges' discretion could help prevent bail reform or cases like this from spiraling out of control. Is that still what you would like to see change within the law?
Well, judges' discretion can only go so far, because when you have non-qualifying offenses, there is no judge discretion, all right? So on a non-qualifying offense, which is Mr. Atman, okay? Mr. Atman is allegedly, again, he's innocent until proven guilty. He's allegedly found standing outside of the storage facility as they walk up to the storage facility outside with the bags of cash and an unloaded handgun as well. There is no judge's discretion in that case. Per law, per statute, he walked out of court this morning.
Sounds like you have over $40,000 here just in cash and jewelry. What, if you're able to prove these charges in court, what happens to you, to that $40,000?
Well, it goes through our asset forfeiture process. So the onus is on the defendant. All right. So the defendant now, if the defendant wants to make a claim for this returned, they have to initiate that claim. All right, and then we litigate that. All right. But if there's no claim made, then we basically keep this and administratively process it, and we divvy it up amongst all of us right here. Oh yeah.
Sheriff, just on I feel like in the past few months we've been attending more and more pressers like this, where you guys are announcing these narcotic arrests. Have you seen an increase in narcotic arrests, and is that kind of one of the core pillars that you're trying to bring as a new sheriff?
I worked in narcotics for 10 years in Buffalo, and there was a lot of narcotics back then, and there's a lot of narcotics now. Yes, but to answer your question, there is an emphasis. We have a great chief, DJ Granville. He has a great team of detectives, and the undersheriff, Bill Cooley, and myself are cops. We're boots on the ground people. So we're in tune with what's going on, and we give the chief all the resources they need, because we have something here that's a different animal, and this is fentanyl. I mean, I remember cases back when in Buffalo when there was a series of overdoses, and the individual was mixing in the heroin a horse tranquilizer, and there was a series of people that died throughout the West Side. Now you have fentanyl. You have fentanyl that's being mixed in with heroin, with cocaine. Sometimes it's just fentanyl. And the biggest seizure of fentanyl, El Chapo's fentanyl, was on Folger Street in South Buffalo a few years back. So, I mean, this is deadly stuff. If I go to a bar and I order a beer or a glass of wine, and somebody gives me poison, wouldn't that be murder? So these drug dealers don't care about their customers.
But let me ask you a question about that. I've always kind of wondered, okay?
Mm-hmm.
If they're using fentanyl to cut the cocaine and make more of value that way. But at the same time, it makes it deadly and more likely that their customer is gonna die. Why, that just doesn't make sense. If you were a dope dealer, wouldn't you wanna keep them as a customer?
So, you know,
So
I think.
That doesn't make sense. Why don't they cut it with something else? I mean,
Times have changed, Dave. I remember over on the west side when people used to deal heroin, and on French Street in Buffalo, on the east side of Buffalo, the drug dealers used to put a laxative in there for their customers because it would bind you, the opiates. Now they're putting fentanyl, so I guess they don't care. And the other part about that is when there was a series of overdoses coming from one house, we went out there and we told all the users to stay away from that house. What they did instead was they said, that's fire, and we're going to that house to use it. So
what does it make?
it doesn't make sense.
Does it make it better, or does it make
Does it make it
higher?
more-
It makes it, yeah. You get a better high than if you were
you're gonna
mix
put
it
that
with
forward.
a laxative or
Okay.
a vitamin blend that they used to use, or
You understand my
baking
point.
soda.
If you had 10 customers and you kill 5 of them, you gotta go
They,
find 5 more.
yeah, it's an epidemic. It's an epidemic.
So they're taking, hang on a second. So use my scale analogy, all right? The drug dealers are making a conscious decision that, you know what? I think that I'm gonna put fentanyl in here because they get a better high. They're gonna crave it more. They're gonna come back. And you know what? On the other hand, they're not gonna die because Narcan's out there. They're gonna get saved. So the odds are they're gonna, you know, for 10 people, 9 are gonna come back. Yeah, maybe 1 will die, but they don't care about that.
Is there any
They're not good people.
between this bus and the bus that we were in this room a month ago with all the heroin that came in from Texas or
Mexico.
California?
Right from Mexico. So we can't dismiss that. At this point, we are going to further investigate and see if this evidence was tied to that case. I mean, that was a lot of kilos. So that's a really good question. It's under investigation.
Where are
mentioned
those
that-
people today? Those 3? The 2
We,
girls and the guy?
we have them at the holding center. And,
Still in
and
custody?
yes, and speaking of the holding center, one of the, you know, sheriff, I'm concerned about the fentanyl on the streets. However, I'm also concerned about people that are being arrested and are bringing in fentanyl, you know, secreting it and then using it and overdosing. So, you know, the time when people used to bring contraband cigarettes and marijuana and whatever else, those days are gone. This is fentanyl. This is deadly. I can't believe that, you know, people are not charged with murder. I mean, we have to look at some legislation to charge the people that are knowingly putting a poison where somebody's injecting it into their system. I just don't understand.
Well, we have given a number of cases to the feds. So the feds have a much better statute, as the sheriff correctly pointed out there, that we need new legislation perhaps. But the feds have a much better statute on charging an individual with a homicide-related offense on selling drugs. So there have been a number of cases over the years that we have sent to the feds for them to prosecute for a homicide charge. But yeah, our state charges, as the sheriff correctly said, our state charges are not great. And also, I forgot, I'd be remiss, all the great players that are back up here, my great ADA, Jimmy Mansour, is up here as well. You know, Jimmy what was integral in helping all these guys out with the search warrants and other items for getting this bus right here.
Yes, Sheriff, you mentioned that this investigation has been going on for nearly 3 months. What kind of led you to this point to get here today?
Surveillance, timing, the fact that the individual pulled over on the 33. He was trying to get rid of the surveillance, and he must have noticed, pulled over on the 33. It could have really gone sideways. I mean, they did a fantastic job of de-escalating, taking the individual into custody without any injuries. I mean, you know how the 33 people are flying, and that's what happens. A lot of times you keep on looking to move up the ladder. Another house. It was time to take this down.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.